Now it started. So I'm just right now in Rhino 7 and I want to work in a centimeter file. So I go to File, New, and then here I pick large objects, centimeters. So yes, I want to be in the perspective view only, so I can see everything clearly. Today, as I mentioned in the email, I am going to mention about the lists a little bit, what are lists and how they work. So we start by opening up Grasshopper. It can take a little bit time for you. So if you want to follow up, I am just gonna wait for a second. All right. First things first, we don't create something called lists. It's just created with everything we do. Maybe you remember from last week that whenever I put a panel and when I attach something to it, it creates a list of items. Those lists I use panel to view. So I'm just going to create a small example quickly that you don't need to repeat what I do. But here I say like 10, yes, and put it here. So as you see, I have 10 numbers and this is a list. So this list is from 0 to 9. It consists of 10 items and it consists of 10 random items that's within the range of 0 to 1. Right now, this part is not important. This is just an example of a list. We are going to see today what is a flattened list, what is a grafted list, what are the differences, and what we can do to modify our lists and what are their importance. First of all, I want to start by creating a series of numbers so we can work on our lists on that. I go to here, sets, which I find all my list items here, like every tool about lists are here. And then under sequence, I find series. You can also double click on Grasshopper screen and write series, and that's the first one. So now, as you see, I have 3 inputs. Okay, we learned about the inputs and outputs last week. So I have a start input, that's the starting number. And then I have step, which is the amount that I'm going to be increasing my list. And then the count is how many steps will I have, how many items I will have. And my output will be a panel. To create a panel, I can either double click and do double slash like this. I can put a quotation mark only once, or I can go to params and under input, I can select this yellow icon. Okay, I connect it. Right now I have a list. That's very simple. It starts from 0. My step is 1, so each item is plus 1. And then my count is 10, so it's from 0 to 9. So if I want to add a different thing, for example, I want to start from 3. I want each step to be plus 5. And I want altogether 12 items. So I have 0 to 11, so totally 12 items. It starts from 3, and every item is plus 5. If I change this to 8, so it's 3, 11, 19, 27, goes like that. Yes, now that's a list. Now let's see what we can do with our list. One of the most used tools that we also used last week is when I go to the sets under list, I have a list item here, just on this first row, this first column, second row. Let's go list item. I can also double click and type in list item. Same thing. It has also 3 inputs, like last time we talked. When I connect a list, so this is my list right now, the series is 12 values. I connect my list to the list parameter here, and I get only one item. So let's copy this. And let's put this here. So as you see, it's only 3, which is my first number. The way it's selected is my index is actually 0. Therefore, it just picks 0. If I make it 11, it's 91, which is number 11, 91. But please pay attention here that when I created the 11th one, in the new list, because this is a new list, it's 0, 91. So it's the first step, and first step is always 0. That's something to remember. When I had a series here, and I just picked an item from that series, this is a different list now. This is not the same list. This is a different list that only reads the previous data. So if I want to change this, I can change. So it's 3, and my third item, the 3, is 27. What if I want to select multiple ones? Like I want to select 2, 6, and 9. So in this case, I can double click, put a quotation mark, and I write a number, 2, for example, and I click enter, and I double click. So I can edit the text. So I have already 2. Now what I need is 6 and 9. So I press enter, I write 6, I press enter again, and I press 9. And I'm not pressing enter again, so I don't want to make a gap like this. I'm just clicking outside. Now, if I put this index to the index, it's going to give me an error. This part is important. Data conversion failed from text to integer. Right now, what we have here is actually a text, which is 2, then goes down, and 6, and goes down, and 9. So this is not separate items. This is all one item. So to make it separate items, I right-click on the panel, and I select multi-line data. Now, as you see, it became a list. So it's 0, 2, 1, 6, and 2, 9. So my items are 2, 6, and 9. And as you see, 2, 19, 19, 6, 51, 51, and 9, 75, 75. So why is that important? Because just using this list item and this workaround, I can select multiple elements from a list, but only the ones I want. You can make it more complex and parametric, so it picks certain elements. So that's number 0. Any questions until here? I guess not. Okay. Let's move on. So we learned that now we can select different items from a list. Now I copy pasted the same list, and I will copy paste the panel as well again. So now instead of selecting, I want to erase some stuff. So I go to the sets again, because all my list tools are here. I go to sequence, and I pick call index. Call in this context means actually deleting, erasing. So as you see, it's almost the same as the list item. We have a list input, which is my series right now. I have wrap, which we are not touching right now, and I have indices. So indices is the same here. Actually, let me copy this as well. Is what I put here. Now, when I create a new list, new panel, I am going to call 2, 6, and 9. So in this case, I have 9 values maximum. Here, I had 3 values. Here, I had 12 values. So in this case, I look at my list. I have 3, 11, 3, 11, but I don't have 19 because we called the number 2. Then I don't have 51 here, and I don't have which one is number 9, 75. I don't have 75. But as you remember, this is a new list. This is not the exact same list before. So the numbers are from 1, so it's from 0 to 8. So you can still see the number 2 here, but number 2 is no longer same as before. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
I understand all of this, and I just don't understand why this is
Important.
relevant to, yeah.
Good. The next steps, I'm going to show something that can be very useful in architectural field while creating buildings. And we are going to use series. And I'm going to show the example of call index and list item and how it can be useful.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. In general, to answer that question even further, when you want to work with Grasshopper more and go deeper into detail, that you want to create some parametric forms, parametric objects, you will always be working with lists, and understanding the list basics are very important. I learned it very late, and after learning it, it's kind of saved me a lot of time, because instead of using these, I was just creating different series, different numbers, and trying to match them up, trying to make it connected to each other somehow, and it was hell of a work. But this way, it's much faster if you understand the basics. So we can turn this off now. Well, it's not showing anything geometrical, but still. And again, under the sets, I have call pattern. For today, this is the last thing with the lists that I'm going to show now. Is when I place it here and I create a panel, as you see, I have only 5 values right now. Let me take it here. So the call pattern is a multi-line data. So when I right click and go to set multiple booleans, by the way, a boolean is a true or false statement. So it's like a button. So I can create boolean toggle, the first one, which you can find under params and input. And here we have boolean toggle. Basically, you can connect it and you can go false or true. And like a button, it changes everything here. So in this case, we have a set of booleans. So not one, not false or true, but we have false, false, true, true. So what does it do? As you see, first two was false, false. So in this case, my first one, which is 3, and my second one, 11, are not here. Then I have 19 and 27 as my firsts, because they are true, true. So I have true, true. And then I have again false, false. 35 and 43 are not visible here. Then I have again true, true. I have 51 and 59. So that's how it goes. I can add something more here. So I can add one more false. So this time I have false, 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 true. It starts from 27, true, 35. Then I have false, false, false again, and I have 67. So in this case, you can just actually call your patterns. Okay. Now I want to create a tower today. And it's a very specific, very basic beginner course for Grasshopper. That's actually quite known. Maybe some of you already worked in that. So first of all, I want to create a tower from a certain profile, from a certain shape. So in this case, I'm going to go with a rectangle. You can go with a polygon, or you can go with a circle, however you want. Like I said, I'm going to go with a rectangle. So I want to create now a width and length of my rectangle. So to create a rectangle, I double clicked and wrote rectangle, and I picked the one with the orange symbol. This one is to select a rectangle, not to actually build one from inputs. So first one, I need my width. So I write here 1000. I think it's fine. And right click on the number slider and make it width. Then I copy paste it here, and then I make it, oops, not double click, right click, I make it length. I hope I wrote it correct, but okay. So I put the width to the X and I put the length to the Y. And as you see, I have my rectangle, which is right now parametric. Right now, I'm not going to show you how I can make it in the minus directions. We are going to go simple. So I have width and length. Now, what I want to do now is create floors, right? I will have my floors. Right now, I have only in the 0. I'm in the front right now, front view, elevation. And I want to go upwards, like for my tower. What do I need? So first of all, I need a floor height. So each floor will have a height. Now, I can go with two directions. I can either go with a certain height for every level and define how many levels I want, or I can go with a top height. So I want my building to be 35-meter high, and I want it to be 10 floors. So in this case, I can make it division, but we are not going to make the division right now. We are going to go with the floor height. So I want my floors to be 300 centimeters, and I call this floor height. That's the first part. Now I want the amount of floors. So I just type here, 6 is okay. Right click and amount of floors. Now, what do I need? Like, I need that 6 times floors, and each of them has 300 centimeters after one another. So plus 300. That's a series. That's what we saw just now. I want my series to start from 0 because when I'm creating my tower and moving them upwards, it's not going to count this. So in this new one, I want one at the 0 as well. So it's 0, 300, 600, 900. So I put my count, I put my step. So let's make a panel to see what I have. So I have my level heights. I have 0, I have 300, 600, 900, 1200, and 1500. So these are my heights. Good. Now I have my heights. I actually need the geometry. So that's why I'm going to move. This move, you can actually go under the transform. And then here we have Euclidean tools, and move is just there. Actually, there is a good tip to see where your tool is. So for example, you always type the name and you don't know where it is. You press Control Alt on your keyboard, hold both of them, and click on your tool, and it automatically shows you, but I'm still holding Control Alt and my mouse button, and when I leave one of them, it just goes. So Control Alt and hold mouse. So I'm going to move it. So I put my rectangle to the geometry, and as you see, it already moved a little bit, but right now it doesn't have any definition. It doesn't have any parameters. So motion is my direction, and actually when I put a direction, I can define how many pieces I want and how long it should be. This is my series for. So my motion is towards upwards, so it's Z direction. Therefore, I write unit Z. And as a factor, I put my series. Then I put the unit vector to the motion. And as you see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 floors. Now I can select the rectangle, first rectangle that we created, right click and go preview off, because I don't want to see it anymore, because here I have 6 different values. Now let's look at from the front. And when I change my floor height, it changes. And if I change the how many floors I want, my amount of floors, I can change it however I want. So let's make it 300 again. And this amount of floors can be 5. So this is the included like erdgeschoss, then erste Obergeschoss, zweite Obergeschoss, dritte Obergeschoss, and vierte Obergeschoss. So until the 4th floor, I would say, so if you start from the ground floor. So we have our geometry right now, and it's kind of a boring form. Like, let's make it 7 at least. And what I mean by boring is, okay, this is a very basic apartment. So I can come here and I can say loft. It's under surface, under freeform, like this wavy shape with orange. So, or you can just type in loft. And I put my geometry to there. So now I created a loft by profiles. So what it does is actually follows up these rectangles and joins them basically. So let's say, let's make this larger, or we cannot go larger. Let's make one side smaller so it's a rectangle, not a square, like this. Let's say I don't want to have the first floor. I want to make it columned and open, for example. In this case, as we remember, I have a list. In this list, I have 7 different rectangles. Now, if I go call index, and I don't want to see the first one, I can either join the first, or I can right click on indices, go to set integer, and type in 0. And then put my list here. And as you see, I don't select the first part. So now if I add this to my loft, as you see, my building starts actually from the 2nd floor, or in this case, 1st floor above the ground floor. So that's one way to use the call index and use the lists and how it actually works. Now I have my boundaries, but I don't actually have any 3D floors. I need a floor with a thickness. So therefore, I'm going to go with boundary surfaces. This one you can find under surface also. It's just right here under freeform boundary surfaces. It's pretty self-explanatory. We just need boundaries to create edges to create surfaces. I already have my edges. I put this here. And as you see, I have my floors. Right now they are 2D. They don't have any thickness. Now let's come to there. So I want to add an extrusion. So extrude, I write, which is again under surface freeform. For that, I actually need a profile. In this case, it's my surface, all my surfaces, and a direction. So as you remember from the motion, direction is the same mentality that I just need a unit z vector. So I write unit z, I edit. It's already working, but I need a factor, I need a thickness. So I double click, I write 20, and let's name it floor thickness. I put it here, and as you see, I have now floors that's going upwards and creating 3D floors. Right now, like we remember, this is just a representation. This is not the real thing. So if I right click here and say bake and select OK, as you see now I have my floors. I just delete it now. So we created our floors and we created our loft. And in this case, I don't want to use this call index. It was just an example. I just want to put it here. So it's again a boring building. Now we have our system ready, right? So this is my 3D element. Let's put this aside. Actually, let's select this 4 of them, right click, and call it a group. So I just right clicked on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Why is your first floor Edgar shows this back again?
Oh, I think you missed that part. I erased the call index and I joined the geometry directly to curves. It was just an example.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So I created this group from for the thicknesses for the extrusion, so I can move them around together as one piece. So let's put that here. Let's put that here. Actually, I will put it up. So, like I said, it's very boring, and I want to make it interesting a little bit, more futuristic, and I don't know, maybe uglier, but who knows. So right now I have my profile, so I'm just going to turn off this visibility. Just I'm going to select everything after my profiles and right click and go preview off. So I only see my 7 rectangles right now. And as you may remember from last time, I'm going to use rotate. You can just type in rotate, or you can go to transform under Euclidean, and here I have rotate. And somewhere here, yeah, here. So I connect my geometry. And as you see, it's right now rotating, but it's rotating around my 0 point. That's because my plane is vert XY. So when I look from top, it's actually rotating around this. And it's right now 90 degrees. First of all, I want it to be rotated around its middle point. So it's not going to move anywhere. It's just going to stay here, but it's going to move the profiles. So first of all, I need the plane for that, which is the middle point of every rectangle. Now, for finding a middle point of a closed area of a surface, I just need to use the tool called area. It basically lets you measure the area of a geometry. So in this case, it's 652,000 in my case, each of those rectangles. And then I get the centroid points, as you can see here. Now this is going to be my plane. Now when you see it, it's 90-degree rotated because it's default 90 degrees. But right now at least it's rotating from the center. Any questions until here? No, great. Now I need my angle. So I don't want it to rotate everything at the same angle, but I want it to be rotated slightly every time. So for example, each of them 10 degrees. And you may already guess, we are going to use series again. So I want 10 degrees each time. And I want, actually, I don't have to create a new one. I'm going to use the same amount of count because we have 7 items. We have 7 here. So I go series. I put my count to the count again, 7. And I put my step number as 10. So each of them will rotate 10. Actually, we can make it a little bit interesting. So it's minimum 0 right now. So we can make the maximum 90 degrees.
Yeah, wait a second.
Yes.
Just a little bit slower here.
Oh yeah, of course. Which parts are you at right now?
Like after you created the number slider.
The 10.
Yeah, this
Okay.
one.
Then I created a series.
Mm-hmm.
Then I connected the 7 from previous series that we use for, you know, our floor amount. So amount of floors, I put it to the count in the new series. And right now, 10 is okay, but I double click on my number slider. So it starts from 0 and in your case, it goes to 10, but I make the maximum amount 90. So I can go up till 90 degrees if I want to. So I click OK. And I put this series to the angle. Now, it looks kind of messy right now. The reason for that is my angle here is in radians, as you remember from previous week. I right click on the angle and I click on degrees. So it rotates in degrees. So everything is clear until here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So right now, to not mess with my eye, I'm just going to select my original rectangles. I right click and preview off, and also for the center points. I don't want to see them. I just want to see my rotated geometry like this. So now is the fun part that I can create my geometry to the edges that we created before and my geometry to the curves of the loft. So instead of putting my rectangle like the moved geometry to the edges and to the curves of the loft and extrusion, I put my rotated geometry this time. And when I turn on them, as you see, it's actually following. And right now I can change my rotation as I want. I can change my rectangle size. I can change my floor height. And I can change the amount I want. So, and I can change the angle like I showed before. So everything is clear until here. Or any questions?
Give me a second, please.
Of course.
Like, what is a preview off? What is preview on from everything you have here?
I only have two preview ons. They are the last two, extrusion and loft. Does it look the same?
No.
No?
Extrusion, loft.
So I have my loft for the edges.
Okay, yes, now it does. Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Great. So right now we have a building. Yeah, if you call it that. And it's pretty good. Came out good. This is the very simple strategy of creating a tower, and it can be useful in many cases. Like right now you don't have to follow what I do because you need to download Launchbox for this, but I can get a quad panels from Launchbox, for example. I can divide it to, for example, 14 each side, and I can put my surface here. Sorry, like I said, this is an example, so you don't have to follow right now. I just want to show the end result. Hopefully. So I can, with the Launchbox, I can divide it into curves like this. Then I can create glass panels and I can create pipes. But this is not for this week, but this is for next week. So we are not going deeper into that. So one more modification I want to show here, and we can then maybe stop for today, and if you have questions you can ask. So I rotated my tower. Well, first I moved and I created my floors. Then I made it a little bit exciting with angle. Now I want to make it a little bit more exciting, and so I want to make it like a pyramid or just a reverse pyramid, that it goes smaller when it goes up. So I move them again a little bit away, these two, loft and extrusion, and I have some space here to work. Now the tool we are going to use right now is called scale. It's a very common tool, and it's under transform, affine, and here you have scale. So I put my geometry first, then I put my centroid to the center, of course, again, and then I need a factor. So what it does is actually it multiplies the size with the given factor, and as you see, it's right now 0.5, and when I look from top, it's just half of it. So I want it to be minimum, in this case, 1, and then I want it to go 1.25, let's say, or actually 1.200, let's try it, so we can manipulate it even better, and maximum 2. So 1 smaller than 1.2, smaller than 2. So this is between 2 and 1. Alternatively, after you create a number slider, you can double click on it. You can make it R for floating point numbers instead of N, which is an integer. And you can change how many numbers after the point you want. So how many digits. Okay, that's the first thing. And I want, again, a series. So my count is one more time. Actually, we can take this one. 7 as amount of floors. I am just repeating the same steps. And then I put my step and I put my start as 1.000. Now I want to control it before I actually attach it. I put it here and I have 7 numbers, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which is not the thing that I want. Because if I put it now, it's going to be multiplying once, twice the size, third the size, and at the top it's 7th the size, which is enormous. Let's see it. As you see, it's quite large. So this is not what I want. What I want is actually, it starts from 0, first of all. Let's disconnect this. Let's set number, right click on start, set number, and set it to 0. So it starts from 0. Is it? I'm just right now thinking, no, the first one I want it to be 1, actually. So set number to 1, because it's the first one, it has to be fixed. Now, afterwards, I don't want it to be multiplying +1, +1, +1, but plus 0 point something, something, something. So I double click on my number slider. I make the minimum 0 just by dragging the 1 downwards. And then my maximum is actually 1. So I double clicked on number slider. I made the minimum 0 and I made the maximum 1. Now I can change this to 0.1, for example, and as you see, it's 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. It's slightly. And I just turn off these for a second, so I only see my scale geometry. As you see, it's getting larger. And actually, it's a very good proportion, but let's see 0.2. Okay, that's actually good. That's actually good. A little bit large at the top. So we can also move it according to our pleasure. From the side, I know it doesn't look like it's going larger at a certain rate. It's because they are rotating. So you just don't see the edges always. So let's say this is good, 175 right now. I do the same thing again and put my scale geometry to the edges and to the loft one more time, like I did with the rotation. And I only turn on loft and the extrusion. And here I have my tower. And if I want to have actually a pyramid looking thing, I think I can go to minus. In this case, it might be dangerous because we start from 1. Let's start from 2. And then I write negative, because negative also shows the direction. Yes. So it becomes like a pyramid, like this. All right. Any questions?
Yeah. Can you please go back a few steps and tell it all again?
Until where?
With the numbers, after the number slider with the 0.175.
Okay.
Did you, by the way, did you change the start point to set number to 1? Because it says to me the...
Yes, I just changed it right now to make it the opposite way, but with 1, let's look at the example.
It's 2, yeah, you have it 2. Okay.
this is what you usually have. So, right? So 175, it starts from 1 and goes like this. In this case, you asked what I did after putting the number slider. I connected my scale geometry output to the edges and to the loft. Same thing as we did with rotation. Is it clear?
Yeah, that's clear. Oh, what is your number slider again? The values are below 0 or what? No, from
It's
0 to 1.
from 0 to 1, yes. From 0 to 1, because I want it to go like maximum. This is even too much. You can even call it 0 to 0.5 because this proportion is abnormous. But this is just an example, so it doesn't matter.
And what's that with the value minus x? What's that?
Yes, now I'm going to show that part, so don't do right now and watch what I'm doing so you understand. I just changed the start value to 2. So the base is larger because I'm going to go upwards and get smaller, so it's like a pyramid. And because right now it goes larger, right? If I turn my values to minus, it's going to get smaller instead of getting larger. So I put the negative value, which is I double click and I write negative. And then I put my negative, I put my number slider to the value and I put my result to the step. In this case, it's just getting smaller. So 0 means that it's equal. Right now, all of them are 2. And then every step, it gets a little bit smaller. This is not like a very pointy pyramid, but just a very small one at the top. Everything clear?
Yeah.
Perfect. So, anyone else has any questions? Or you, Daria, as well?
No, thank you.
Okay, from my part, this was all for today. It's a shorter one because last week was a little bit too long, I think. But next week, I suggest you download Lunchbox for the tutorium. I show you how to do it. So you go to internet and you write Lunchbox Rhino. And here, the first link, Lunchbox Rhino, food for Rhino. At the bottom part, you have the download option. You won't see it as download. You will probably see it as login. So you need to create an account. It's for free. You can create an account and you go download. And Lunchbox is easy. You just go open and it's going to open up an installer. Actually, let's do it. It's going to open up an installer and then you will just click on install and it's going to install it. And then next time, actually, you don't even need to close the Grasshopper. It's just going to be there. And here, the one we are going to use is the panels that I'm going to be using. Of course, there are very, very useful tools like math or even machine learning, which is a very interesting tool set. I never looked into it detailedly, but if you have interest on that part, it can be really fun. It has an Excel reader and everything. Okay. I think it's done for today. Thank you for coming. Like I said, I have a little bit more time, so if you have questions, feel free to ask. Let me stop the recording.